We all know Bill Gates is the famous guy who started the company Microsoft, but since he stepped down from Microsoft as the CEO in the year 2000, Bill's been funding many of his philanthropic research projects such as the creation of fake meat, artificial food ingredients, synthetic drugs, medical treatments, and even vaccine technology. In fact, he owns thousands of patents for food and medical technology, which means that he gets a small amount of the revenue from companies that use those technologies. This ultimately explains why he was a strong advocate for vaccinating everyone during the pandemic, because of course he'd be profitable. And with these latest research projects he's behind and his stance on religion and God that's changed over the years, I've come to find clues that could lead to potential plans that would suggest that Bill Gates has a plan to remove God from society forever, or at least he's going to try. So what exactly is his plan, and what would suggest that he wants to remove God from society? Let's dive right in. So just as I mentioned, Bill Gates has been investing a little over the last 2 decades in many medical and food research initiatives through his foundation, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And up to this point, Bill has invested billions of dollars in a variety of research. One example is Bill's synthetic food company, Impossible Foods. They own and control 24 patents and over 100 patents pending to artificially create cheese, beef, and chicken. Essentially, playing God when it comes to our natural source of protein. He even said back in 2021 that, and I quote, "All rich countries should move to 100% synthetic beef." And you may find much of his products in your local grocery stores already. And in 2020, Bill Gates' his new initiative called Gates AG1. This initiative seeks to fund and quote unquote invest not to individual farmers, but to scientists so that they can develop other engineered and processed food ingredients at a lab, which obviously he's looking to replace God's natural creation with man-made crops. Another example is Ginkgo Bioworks. Bill Gates invested over $17.5 billion to create genetically engineered flavors and scents into yeast and bacteria to create everyday ingredients. Now, Ginkgo Bioworks is a very important subject for this video, and we'll come back to this in just one sec. Now, of course, Bill's justification and claims with many of his research is that he's trying to solve problems like world hunger, poverty, climate change, and even diseases. So, I mean, it does seem altruistic and charitable, but is it? What you'll notice is that all of these research and projects have one thing in common, and that is almost all of them involving replacing the natural with artificial. Again, it's almost like as if he's trying to replace God and his perfect creation with artificial creation. But why? Well, it's all about getting control through patents. And I do want to give you a little bit of context in this. Back in 1920, the Bayh-Dole Act, aka the Patent and Trademark Law Amendment Act, was passed by Congress. This law allowed scientists at federal agencies and universities the right to claim personal ownership of inventions or discoveries that were made using the American tax dollar. But here's what's interesting about the patent law. The law prohibits patents on laws of nature, natural phenomena, or abstract idea, as well as product of nature. So obviously you can't put a patent on naturally grown tomatoes or fruit because they're God-made and you can't patent those. But once there's any aspect of human engineering or genetically modified version of these fruits or vegetables, then they could be patented, and ultimately whoever owns the patent will get paid by companies or other individuals that use and buy these technologies. So Bill Gates' ultimate plan is to replace all natural made food and medicine with artificially created foods so that he can make money off his research and invention. Because to Bill, there is no other God but him and his bank account. And speaking of Bill being his own God, what is his position on religion and spirituality? Well, back in 2014, he did make a comment during a Rolling Stones interview saying that, and I quote, "I think it makes sense to believe in God." But unfortunately, this quote is taken out of context, and it looks like his stance on religion changes over the past decade. In fact, some sources point to how he's no longer practicing any religion and that he may have taken the position of atheism. While this necessarily cannot be confirmed, it's quite evident that Bill Gates' #1 priority is to secure every little patent that he can get his hands on to line his pocketbooks. But more recently, I discovered some clues about a series of research that Bill Gates has heavily invested into that could suggest that he's wanting to remove and replace God. The first research is Ginkgo Bioworks, again, which I mentioned earlier that they are creating artificial flavors through bacteria and yeast. Well, the very same technology that creates those artificial flavors can also be used to design and print DNA. Given enough time and resources, what's to say that Bill Gates wants to design and print human DNA. And already we're seeing the possibilities of scientists wanting to create artificial wombs to make artificial babies. So what's to say, again, that Bill Gates wants to create the quote-unquote perfect babies in humans of the future? And there's even instances where he suggested that removing part of a human brain, you can remove religion forever. Meaning, by taking the faculty away of the concept of God or the brain's ability to conceptualize God, he's suggesting that he could remove religion from our human brains forever.
Bill Gates was once sharing at a religion conference, and he said, if you remove certain parts of the brain, you could take away religion forever.
So as Bill Gates' imagination increases, is it possible that these artificial humans that Bill wants to create and design will come with a predisposition to reject religion and God altogether? And not to mention, Bill Gates is also funding massive amounts of money to artificial intelligence research. One example of this is the recent $1.3 billion funding to further AI research. This, of course, is a direct link to another video we made a few weeks ago where we suggested that once the AI technology paves its way to artificial general intelligence, aka AGI, it will have the capabilities to create its own AI religion that will ultimately be in control by global elitists like Bill Gates. So if you want us to unpack a little bit more about how AI could create its own religion, we'll leave the video link down below so you can check it out after this video. So by connecting all these dots of what Bill Gates is funding and actively behind it, we can come to a possible conclusion that Bill Gates wants to remove God and put himself as the master of the world. From controlling technology that has the potential to print and design human DNAs, backing the development of a super AI that can create its own religion, to an eventual domination of our food and medicine, it's clear that Bill Gates has one goal in mind: to control every aspect and decision of our daily life. And to me personally, I believe that God should be the only one that has the say and control of our life and our everyday decisions. So if my opinion and prediction is true, I believe that Bill Gates is ultimately repeating the same mistake as the ancient civilization that tried to build the Tower of Babel. In fact, Genesis chapter 11 verse 4 begins to read, "Then they said, 'Come, let us build ourselves a city with a tower that reaches to the heaven, so that we may make a name for ourselves. Otherwise, we will be scattered over the face of the whole earth.'" And to that I say, any attempts to replace God or try to be God ultimately leads to destruction. In fact, this is the basis idea for sin. It's a complete rejection of God's rule and deciding that one will be his or her own God. And listen, I don't personally hate Bill Gates and I don't wish him any harm or danger at all. Rather, I want to see Bill Gates turn from his ways of greed and arrogance and accept God's ways and plans for all of our lives. But just as Bill Gates wants to potentially remove God, churches all around the world are being taken over by bars, restaurants, and even nightclubs. Where people used to worship and pray, now there are stripteases and dancers. In fact, we fully unpacked what is going on and what's happening to church buildings all around the world in this video, where Daniel does an excellent job pulling the curtains back on what's going on with the church buildings all around the world.